Now, is there a difference between, let's say, a band, let's take a band like Poison, for example, or one of the major bands bringing a mass band out, and the designer who designs an individual costume to compete on a night like tonight? What's the difference there between those designers who come up with a concept for a mass band and those who design individual costumes?
Oh, it's, I mean, you have touched a point there that is very dear to me, because I think we are starting to lose the concept of that same design in our costumes now. I mean, because the costumes as today, I find, have started to go more towards the pyrotechnics, more towards the special effects, and forgetting our basic concept of design. I mean, the costumes are getting bigger and bigger, and we're seeing more and more special effects. And I don't really blame the designers. I go back to the judges, because they keep bringing these costumes into the finals year after year. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, we've seen floats going across stage and on costumes. But we'll talk about that a little later.
Okay, so they're making plans to bring on the kings and queens, and Alison Hennessy's about to do the honors of bringing on the queens. The queens will certainly be the ones first to grace the stage. You all in the world of mass don't defend your title, do you?
No, we don't. It's, I'm glad you brought that up. This is a point that I've been arguing with years for the powers that be. They are the only two monarchs that don't come back the following year to defend their title. Why? We are yet to find out.
Okay, so I guess it's time for the first one to grace the stage, and you could use your experience of winning all these trophies over the years.
Yeah, basically the first costume is Rosemary Jagasa. Now, I know Rosemary very well. She's a very small woman. She's like 5'1".
Okay.
And I was talking to her backstage. Rosemary has been playing Queen for 19 years now.
Wow.
And this is her 10th year in the March Gras.
Okay, there we go on stage now.
Okay, basically the name of her costume is Goddess of the Sky. Tundra, Goddess of the Sky. It's the fancy Indian category. As long as I know Rosemary, she has been playing Indian mass. But what I like about it, I mean, the costume has movement. It's only on two wheels, which I find should be allowed for perfect balance, because it is windy out there. I mean, this costume is 15 feet high, 12 feet wide, and on a windy night could be a lot of trouble to carry. So two wheels, I figure, is acceptable. And as I said, she's a very small woman, but unless you're still getting movement in the costume. It's a traditional Indian mask, a lot of feathers, a lot of work done. And people might look at it and say, oh, it's the same thing every year. For this category, yes. I mean, there's only so many ways you could depict a fancy Indian. When we go to the other categories, it's a different ball game.
How long will it take to design a costume like this, Peter?
Oh, design-wise, I mean, I have talked to designers who will literally go to sleep and come up with an idea in a couple of days to have it. Building-wise now, like I spoke to some of the builders backstage, and we've had costumes that was only done in 2 weeks. We've had something 4 months to do.
Okay.
A costume like this, just the feathers, I mean, laying down those kind of feathers, that's weeks and weeks of work. And these are costly things. I mean, those feathers, one plume you see there is $20.
$20 for one plume?
For one plume.
Wow.
So that's something I want to get across to the public, that anybody you see, anybody who playing king or queen or any individual, it's definitely for the love of it. The monetary returns are negligible. I mean, we will talk about that as we go along. The prize money that these people get for putting out this energy, and that money is nothing in return.
I guess we're about to make way for contestant number 2.
This is Marlene Moraldo. She's from the band Dynasty in the Desert. Oh, this is one of Stephen Derrick queens. Stephen is very famous again for his feather work, his wire bending. Stephen Derrick has been involved in mass for over 30 years. And again, it's the same traditional costumes he builds every year. Same sort of structures, but it's amazing the kind of wire work and feather work that he does. And again, most of his masqueraders, they carry their costumes just with 2 back wheels. And every time I think of Stevie Derrick, I think of Denise Duncan. She was one queen on 4 different occasions. And she was one of those masqueraders that always carried a costume, which is something I always feel it's so important. I mean, from a little child growing up, I've always heard about play your mask. I've never heard about drag your mask. And that's what's happening now. You see these huge floats being dragged across the stage.
But I realized over the past couple of years, light has a lot to do with the presentation. When you want darkness, when you want certain color lights and things like that.
Once again, I think we have to thank Mr. Minchell for this. I mean, we were criticized for this years ago when we asked for our own music. We were the first people to come on stage with Tassa. We didn't have any tradition. We had Tassa drums and the other kings protested about it. We were the first to come with special effects and the lights, and now it has sort of taken over. I mean, it's really gotten out of hand, but it's great for part of the theatrical production. I have no problem with the special effects. I have no problem with the special lights once it relates to the costume.
Okay.
But sometimes you see a fish come across the stage and you're seeing fireworks, you know. It's and that is my problem with all these special effects. If it's part of the costume, fine. Like if you look at this closely, you'll see a lot of little birds on this costume, and it's actually flying. You actually see the wings moving. With the special lights right now, you really can't pick it up. But I don't mind special effects with a costume once it relates to the costume. It enhances the costume, fine. But I think it's getting carried away now with all these special effects, the bubbles, the lights, the confetti.
What category this mask falls into?
Category Ancient History. And it's called Goddess of the Sky. As I said, it's from Stephen Derrick's band, Dynasty in the Desert. In fact, Stevie Derrick has 2 queens in the finals this year. And this costume is 20 feet high, 20 feet wide, and 15 feet deep. But again, this is something being carried by a woman. And it's made out of wire, aluminum, carvings, fabric, and absent of fiberglass. One of the few costumes you have with no fiberglass.
With no fiberglass.
No, that is Stevie. Stevie is very well known for his wire bending skills. I mean, Stephen Derrick has costumes with almost every carnival all over the world now.
So she's actually dancing this mask here for us.
Well, it's like in between. It's sort of carrying it, sort of pulling it. But again, this is something that's very dear to me. I am very strong in believing that a masquerader should carry their costume. I have been talking about this for years. I said, well, maybe we should have 3 categories. Have your carnival king, your carnival queen, and float. Because, I mean, some of these costumes, as we get more into the competition, are 30 feet wide, 30 feet deep, 25 feet high. I mean, it almost takes up the entire Savannah stage.
What's the average cost of making one of these costumes, Peter?
Okay, we'll take an average of the costumes we will see tonight, and you're talking about over $60,000.
Over $60,000?
Correct. I mean, I spoke to Ted Eustace backstage, and he told me his costume, after $90,000, he stopped counting.
After $90,000?
He stopped
counting.
Matter of fact, he told me, I was talking to him not too long ago, he has spent $8,000 just in duty and the material he brought in for this costume.
What kind of subsidy, if anything at all, mask people get in designing and building these costumes that tourists come to see?
There's no subsidy in it, but this is something we've been asking the powers to be for years for duty-free materials, and it just hasn't come to pass. The first place for winning King of Carnival this year is $45,000.
$45,000.
And this has only been so for 2 years now. 3 years ago it was $20,000. I mean, Geraldo Vera has spent over $100,000 on his costume that you're going to see tonight.
Now, what do the judges look for when you all go across that with your costume?
Okay, but what happens? They come backstage and they come closer to check out your neatness, your craftsmanship, to see exactly how the costume is put together.
There's an inspection.
There's a pre-stage, backstage judging where you get some points from that. Then you get points on stage for impact, color, creativity, originality. And this is something I figured that the judges will pay attention to, because I have seen costumes here. People criticize the poor Calypsonians for the jump and wave every year, and hearing the same calypsos every year. It's no different to the King and Queen. You see costumes here that you've seen last year, and the year before, and the year before. When you check the score sheets, originality, the points are way up there.
On stage right now, we have the 3rd contestant.
Yeah, this is Shami Rock. Portrayal, Peace Flowing Peace. She's from the category Creative Tropical. The name of the band, Extracts from the World of Beautiful Things. And as you can hear, she's coming on to special music, which has been allowed recently to add to part of your theatrical performance. Then most of them will go into your traditional calypso.
So you must perform the mask to a calypso at some point, is that so?
Well, it's not in the rule book, but I think people would expect it, seeing that it's the King and Queen of Carnival. I remember poor Wayne Barkley was criticized years ago when he had a Queen show at the GMP Complex. Costume-wise, it was a total success, but the world came down on him because it did not hear any calypso for the entire show.
Okay.
But basically, as a masquerader, you want to show the judges that you have control of your costume. You want to, from a person, I used to try to become a part of my costume, become what you're portraying. And this is something that we are starting to lose in Carnival. Because, as I said, you will see somebody strap a costume onto them and literally drag it from point A to point B. And you talk to Geraldo Vera, as big as his costume is, it's a costume, it's only on 2 wheels. It's perfectly balanced.
It's time for contestant number 4. I find they went very quick tonight.
You find that?
They went very quick tonight.
Yes. You're allowed 4 minutes on stage.
4 minutes on stage.
But believe me, out there after a minute, especially if it's a windy night like tonight,
Yeah.
as a masquerader, you are trying to get off there because you start cramping up. I mean, the average weight of these costumes out there, for the women costumes, you find, believe it or not, close to 200 pounds.
Wow. So Michelle George
So
is
on stage we have Michelle George, Splendora of Beauty, category Ancient History, from the band Nature's Beauty. It's basically made from, they have okay, aluminum rods, fiberglass, wire, foil, beads, and lamy. Now here we see the masquerader. She's actually shaking and moving about. You're getting some life from the costume, but again, it's because the costumes are based on 4 wheels. If they remove the front 2 wheels and your legs become the front 2 wheels, any movement that you make, the costume will respond. And we would see it in some of the costumes tonight, and that's where the costume comes alive. But the designers have gotten, the whole front has gotten so out of hand now, where bigger is better. The costumes keep getting bigger, and therefore it has to go on wheels.
I like the color contrast in this one here.
Yeah, basically it's a mixture of purples, blues, shades of gold. And you have, and most of the movement you're getting here is from the wind. It's very windy here tonight. And a couple of the masqueraders are going to be in trouble a little later on because we do have some of them who are actually carrying the entire costume. I was backstage a little while ago and everybody literally had to tie down their costumes backstage. It is so windy tonight.
When you say tie down, what do you mean by tie down?
Literally tie it onto the fences, tie it onto the stands. They were blowing costumes over backstage. And most people ask you, how heavy the costume was. A lot of times it's not really how heavy it is. It's the costume properly balanced. How windy was it? Because you could have a costume that's only 50 pounds. But if it's a windy night, you're basically carrying a sailing boat on your back. I mean, if you look at this costume, 2 huge 15-foot wings. There are no holes in these wings. Ooh. And the stage is basically 8 feet off the ground, so the wind factor up there is even stronger than where we are sitting.
The portrayal, it's all in the game.
Okay, we have here Alana Ward, who is the out front runner for the night. She won at the preliminary, she won at the semi-finals. This is only her second time playing Queen, I've been told. Apparently she played Queen the first time in South last year for Ivor Killicharan. And she has come up to the tongue, and Paulette Eustace has designed the band. This is Tedder's brother.
Okay.
And it's from the band Barbarossa, category Original Tropical. You would hear the dramatic music that they've used for the opening sequence of this, which is all part of the presentation. Which is, I think it's good. It's good for the mass, and we have added theater into it now, and it's just not this whine and jump and wave that people have gotten accustomed to.
Now, seeing that you are bringing a mass section in Barbarossa, would you have any kind of relationship with this particular costume on stage as far as helping design, bend,
No, this is done specifically by the Eustace brothers. I don't think even Richard Afong, the band leader, had an idea what was going on until after they brought the design to him. And I think that's what has happened, what we have lost to the King and Queens. Before, it was an honor to be asked by a band to play King and Queen for them, because the actual bands used to produce their own Kings and Queens, and the masquerader would just play it. Now, each masquerader you see out there pays for their own costume.
You're serious about that?
Before, where a band would pay for the costume, and like when I first started playing King, I was invited by Stephen Leong to come and play for him, and Peter Minshall designed the costume, and that was a great honor for me. Now, it's just a role reversal. If you decide, Eric, that next year you want to play King, you fork out your money, find a band, and they will gladly accept you because there's no cost to them. And the reason why bands have stopped it, again, is because of the cost factor.
This has some very nice colors and...
Oh yes, it's fantastic. I mean, if you backstage, if you look at the actual craftsmanship and workmanship on the costume, it's exquisite. It's very well done, very neatly done. The colors are basically the same colors of the King, the colors of the greens, different shades of greens and purples and black mix. It's a very lovely costume. But again, it falls back to what I've been saying all night. Is it a costume? Is it a float? I mean, if you look at it, she's not really a big woman. And sometimes you actually see her struggling to get this costume to move. You can see you're smiling there, but believe me, You're hurting inside trying to get this costume from point A to point B. But you have to keep that smile on for the judges that, hey, this is easy, this is simple.
So when they do the adjudication, they look at the mass players, expressions and things like that?
They take all that into consideration. They take into consideration impact, how comfortable you are carrying the costume, because some of the costume can be very big and beautiful, but you can see you struggling with it and you're not really in control of your costume, you lose marks for that. You get marks for Spirit of Carnival. I remember one year when I just scraped team to the semi-final because we had technical problems with the costumes that year. And what got me in was Spirit of Carnival. I got full points for that. So it is an important part of the costume.
You know, in talking to you here, I get the feeling that maybe those of us who are doing TV coverage of the carnival need to get probably behind stage to get the craft of the costume, because I sense that the viewer at home miss a lot of the design and the work that goes into the costume.
Oh yes. I mean, if you see these things, but like this costume in particular, the workmanship, as I said before, it's exquisite. It's very neat. It's a lot of detail. Geraldo Vera is another one for a lot of detail on his costume. I mean, this costume took them 4 months to build, at the cost of $50,000.
Okay, who is up next? Up next should be
Next we have Andra Bob, our reigning queen of Carnival.
This name is a very popular name in the mass business.
Yes,
Andra, just like Peter Samuel.
Andra is the most winning queen in the category. I think she has won on 5 different occasions.
Wow.
She is the reigning queen. She won in, according to my things here, she won in 85, she won in 96, she won in 98, and again last year. Andre has been playing mass for as long as I know myself playing mass, and she's one of those who believes in the mass. I mean, she does this for the love of it. I mean, I know people...
There she is enjoying herself.
Of course, you know, I mean, you say people save their money to go away on holidays. People like Andre save their money to play mass. Again, this is a Stephen Derrick costume. You can see the typical feather work. I mean, it's a lot of time and effort goes into this costume, laying down these feathers. And as I said earlier, one of those plumes you see there is $20,000. I mean, sorry, $20. So you add up the costume there, and feathers alone, you could spend as much as $20,000 in just feathers. And that's why people keep saying, you know, the standard of the costumes are dropping. And the reason for this, the cost of materials keep going up year after year, and the price money remains the same. So unless you can really afford it, it's very hard to produce a costume this size.
Now, Stephen is known, as you say, for his feather work.
His feather work, his wire bending, because everything you see there is, again, as I said, there's no fiberglass in his costumes, pure aluminum and wire. You will get a few fiberglass rods that will give you the bounce. But the actual structure is just wire and aluminum.
How much attention is paid towards the color contrast and things like that?
Oh, again, that's where the designer comes in. You want color blending. That's where you ask for special lights to blend with the costume, the colors of the costume. And again, that comes with part of your impact. The points for color is not that high, but for impact, the actual, whatever you are portraying, they also look to see how close it is to what you are supposed to be. If it's supposed to be a bird, does it look like a bird? You know, are you kind of like how a bird would? You know, these are things that a masqueraders, I mean, that they try to do when they go out there. Sometimes you run into all kind of technical difficulties. You get out there, a wheel might stick on you, part of the costume might break. I mean, people, they don't know half what happens outside there.
Coming on stage would be number 7.
Okay, here we have Gloria Dalsing. A portrayal is Sky Glazer. Category Creative Tropical.
There was the
name of the band, In Our Space. And here we see again the use of the pyrotechnics. This I have no problem with. The name of the costume is Sky Glazer. Okay. So you're related to the sky with the fireworks. And as I said, I don't mind the special effects once it pertains to a portrayal. But I remember here for preliminary night, I saw a fish. And it had the fireworks, it had all the special effects, you know, I mean, let's get, you know, if you're going to do the special effects, try and make it relate to your portrayal and your costume.
Wow.
You're asking how safe it is, I think, you know, like most of the big rock shows you will see now where they use pyrotechnics, they take a lot of time and safety goes into this. A lot of these people now, they hire people who are trained in using pyrotechnics.
But
Lighting engineers are brought in now for the special effects of the lights.
with the cost of pyrotechnics, do they rehearse this thing before they get out there on stage?
Again, that's right. So you talk about you have to use it before you come on stage. You have to use it in your preliminaries, your semi-finals, your finals. So in pyrotechnics alone, you could spend $10,000, $20,000.
Do you give like the lighting person instructions as to when you want lights, how, and
Yes,
et cetera?
this is something that's been brought into the mass quite recently, where you're allowed to choose what music you want. You're allowed to choose what lights you want, what color lights, when you want them on, when you want them off. Because it all adds to your portrayal. It adds to the dramatics in your costume, how you want it portrays your actual presentation. So you'll see a lot more of that tonight, especially with Geraldo Vera, Taylor Eustace, even Brian McFarlane. And these are all top designers. You'll see them using the special lights, using special sound to bring out as much they could offer the costume to impress the judges.
About this costume, tell me some more about it.
Okay, according to my concept here, Beauty and Lights from Outer Space. Basically, it is supposed to depict exactly all the notes we were given.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be Beauty and Lights from Outer Space. Sky Glacier is related to the band on Lights from Space and the Beauty of the Sky.
Leslie Ann Borzell is up next.
Sunset on Glacier Mountain. So the band, Now and Beyond, this is Fantasia. The designer is Keith McLean. The costume was built by the Mask Factory. The masquerader is Leslie Ann Borzell, and she gave us a little synopsis. As far as scientific predictions go, there will be another ice age soon. Before the ice age, there will be a meltdown of the world's glaciers as a result of global warming, which will result in the rising of the world's ocean levels. But out of something negative comes a thing of beauty. The costume depicts a sunset over a glacial mountain.
Now, when a designer sets out with these, wonderful concepts, I guess the agenda now is to bring it to life.
Correct, which is sometimes not that hard. I mean, you're talking about a sunset over glacial mountains, but yet you want to see movements, you want to see spirit of carnival. So it's for a designer, it's quite hard to get this kind of portrayal across and yet get that spirit of carnival and movement in the costume that you're talking about. So in a case like this, what you want to try and do is have this costume gliding across the stage. It's supposed to be a glacier, right? So you really don't want that jump up and shake, and the masquerader has to, as you see there, is thoroughly enjoying herself. Walking quite freely, the costume is moving very freely across stage. Sometimes you go out there and some simple things happen coming up the track. Chewing gum gets stuck on the casters. The grass from out in the savannah gets hooked in it and your wheels get jammed, which has happened to me on about 3 occasions. So I know that feeling well.
When these things happen, what do you mask people do?
You learn quickly how to improvise. I mean, we all come up there with a set plan in our mind. This is how I want my performance to be. We will go to the north stand first, go to the grandstand, make a left turn, a right turn. And you get out there and the breeze tells you, no, you're not going right. So you do what the wind tells you to do. It's like taking a crash course in sailing. And basically that's what you have to do. It's like tacking in sailing. When the wind takes you, you have to learn how to control it, literally get the wind out of your sails, and you improvise from there on.
Number 9 is coming up in a while from now. That should be Joanne Pascal.
This is Joanne Pascal, portrayal the pollen game. Category fancy. The concept, birds, bees, ants. Used as agents in the transfer of pollen to germinate flowers and plants. And here we're going to hear all the special effects of the birds and the bees like if you were in a forest. Which again adds to all the theatrics in the costume, which is nothing wrong with it. It's all part of your presentation.
How important is presentation in winning a King or Queen of Carnival?
Very, very important. I mean, if you could get top marks in that, you are halfway there. Because the judges want to see that you are portraying what they're reading in front of them. A lot of the judges haven't seen this costume before tonight, because they change the judges from show to show.
Oh, they do?
So they get a concept and they would read it. And okay, you would come backstage and you would see it being put together, but you want to see this transform to life now on stage. So that presentation, that first impact is so important. That first impact when you come on the stage. But it's something that I figure that, I mean, as I said, I don't blame the masquerade. I go back to the judges. because you see costumes here get the top points in originality, and it's something that I know that I saw last year. And I mean, I talk about exact design, different color, but it's something we have seen before. So how could you tell me this is original? And I don't know if it's that because of the change in the judges why, but the way I think about it is if I'm going to be judging a King and Queen show, I should have some sort of background in the former competition, what I've done in the past, especially if one of the categories is going to be originality. I should have done some kind of research and background into what has happened before. So if I see a costume, I knew, hey, this is new, this is fresh. You know, and therefore the points you're going to get a lot higher than something I've seen for the last 5 years. Okay. So I think this is something that the NCBA really has to look at, this to fine-tune the judges, because I find it so unfair to the designer who has gone through all these long hours of designing something new, something different, something fresh, and been given 10 points for originality.
Is that am I seeing their cobwebs?
Oh yeah, as I said, it's birds, bees, ants. So it's all the different insects you will see in the transfer of pollen to germinate flowers and plants. So you're seeing the little ants and the butterflies and the flowers. And if you look carefully, you'll see a couple of hummingbirds in between.
Yes.
So as I was saying, you know, it's hard for that designer who has gone out of the way to do something new and get low points. And then another costume comes up that you know that you have seen over and over and over, but because it's very well designed, very well built, the workmanship is great, and you get them 20 points for originality. So I think this is something we really have to look into in terms of judging.
Susan Lowe is coming with Vision of Tomorrow.
Vision of Tomorrow, there's no category here on our sheet that was given to us. The concept is various shapes to reflect the many modes and ideas of the future. So I suppose this will be either creative, tropical, if this is Eyes of Tomorrow, or fantasy. Do you
have set categories in the world of mask?
Yes, so besides the actual King and Queen, you find you have ancient history, you have modern history, creative, topical, original. So you have different categories. So although you might not win King or Queen, you could still pick up prizes in your category. So there you can always try and recover back some of the money that you have spent in the category you have entered in. Now here we see again the use of the pyrotechnics. We see a lot of movement in the flags, but again most of this movement is coming from the wind.
Okay.
Again, the costume is it's being carried on 4 wheels, floating across the stage quite comfortably. And it's not as easy as it looks to maneuver these costumes and make the turns. It takes a lot of pressure off of the lower back area, off of the legs. Many times you come up here, you come off the stage and your legs are all cramped up on you. Because basically you're maneuvering a 200-pound costume and keeping its constant chip at the same time with a smile on your face and try to literally turn and show that you are comfortable with the costume. It takes a lot of effort, especially out of the women. There's a lot of lower back strength, a lot of leg strength.
Are you expected to make certain amount of turns and...
Not in the rules, no, it's not expected of you, but what you are trying to show the judges is that you have control over this costume and it is easy to carry, that you are comfortable doing it. So the more you turn, and sometimes it's easier to keep moving than to stop because of the weight of the costume. When you stop to try and get the costume moving again, it takes that much more effort. So once you continue moving, it's a lot easier. So by turning and moving, it's a lot easier than just trying to stand up and dance with the costume. And that's what is harder, carrying a costume on 4 wheels than actually taking it on your back. Although it's more weight to carry, the slightest movement you make, the costume responds.
Okay, I hear you loud and clear. It's time for the final contestant.
And here we have Pamela Gordon. Pamela Gordon is another one of the masqueraders who have been around for many years, has always been in the Mardi Gras, and she is playing the category creative. And it's from the portrayal is been performed since 2001. Oh, this is from Legends. The relation to the team to the band depicts changes in the modern day environment. The description is transformation of the butterfly into an electronic butterfly. So as you were asking earlier, this comes under the category creative. This is where the designer gets to use a little bit more imagination.
Okay.
Because
A little more creative freedom.
correct. We call it artistic license. So what they're saying here basically that it is the transformation of a butterfly into an electronic butterfly. And that's why we see all the lights and all the special effects on the costume.
I guess
The height of this costume is 22 feet, the width 20. The basic colors are gold, orange, black, and silver. Materials used, fiberglass, cane, aluminum wires, lame, sequins, braids, and feathers.
I often thought that you normally would have 8 queens and 8 kings. Why we have 11 queens this time around?
What had happened this year in the preliminaries, we had a tie, 4 queens tying. We had 4 queens tying for the 8th place this year. And that's why we ended up with 11 in the final. So the points, I had a list here with me with the points. Ilana Ward had won with 441 points. The queen that came second was Leslie Ann Boiselle. That was the sunset of the Glazer Mountain. She came second with 420, which is a big gap. And then the last 4 costumes tied with 389 points. So these other costumes have a lot of catching up to do to try and catch Ilana Ward. So I think
Pamela, who is
Pamela
on
Gordon
stage
came
now,
fourth with 407 points. So if they run true to form, it's going to be a tight finish for second and third and fourth tonight between Andrea Bob, Pamela Gordon, and Leslie Ann Boiselle. And here we go to the big boys, the kings.
Now, I'm not sure if people at home might find it to be a sexist statement, so the big boys are coming here now. In other words, make way for the real thing, right? No, you're just teasing you here, Peter.
Let me find my sheet with the kings on it.
Carnival 2001 Dimanche Grand Night here at the Queen's Park Savannah. And Peter Samuel.
All right, in tonight's lineup of kings, we have 3 former winners. We have Roderick Snell, who won in 1991. We have Geraldo Vera Jr., who won in 96 and 99. And we have Curtis Eustace, who won in 97, 98, and last year. So he's your defending king.
Defending king. Well, defending king, unofficial defending king.
Yes, unofficial.
To underscore your point earlier on.
Yes, so this is something that I'm going to keep pushing this year to find out why they are not given at least the glory of saying they're coming back to defend their title.
Knowing that you already win a loss financially.
Of course, at least let me have that honor to say that I'm coming back to defend my title.
So we have 8 kings, no
We have
ties.
8 kings, no ties. Our first king is Philip Simpson. It's from the category original. The band is from the Midas Touch, Dynasty in the Desert.
That's
Again,
Derek,
another one
right?
is Stephen Derrick. The portrayal is the Scorpion, king of the desert.
And the sound effects, lights, add to the theater.
Special effects. Fog machine, multicolored lights, special lighting.
Do you feel a bit redeemed that this is happening now when earlier in your career with Peter Minchell that was almost frowned upon?
Well, I look at it and I smile, and I figure, well, we were...
Ahead of your time.
Yeah, and the whole thing is, I'm glad to see that it's continued to a point. It's now getting overboard. It's getting out of hand if we don't try and put a control on it. But basically, somebody has to be the first. I mean, everybody criticized Paul Shorty when he came up with soca. Look where soca is today. So somebody has to be innovative. Somebody has to start it first. And what it has brought to the mass is the theatrics. It helps with the presentation. It's a lot more drama now with Tina costume coming out. It has the audience on edge at their seats waiting to see what's going to happen next, what's going to happen now.
That's how I feel exactly.
Which helps.
And the lights obviously were used for effects.
Yes, it helps with some of the presentations. Some of them, they don't get proper advice and they use the wrong lights and really does not help the costume. But a lot of the bigger costumes now, when the more recognized designers have gone out to hiring lighting engineers and song engineers to work with them on the costumes. There are electrical engineers now working on costumes because of all the electric and the songs that's on the costume now.
I guess the head movement we are seeing here is all part of the choreography. in how the
So
costume
this is
presented?
the scorpion. I'm trying to, no, we won't. I was hoping that we got some sort of concept of the actual masquerade, but we won't get. Some of them gave us some very intense backgrounds and others didn't. Carrying, I mean, a simple thing as a headpiece like that, which is very important to the costume, but it's so restrictive. It restricts your vision.
Okay.
So you lose sight of the end of the stage, so you have to be so careful of where you are, because it's so easy to fall off stage, which I have seen happen on more than one occasion.
Seriously?
Yes, it's very claustrophobic inside of this mask. It's very hard to breathe. At this point in time, you're on stage about a minute, the costume is getting heavier. You're now trying to get as much oxygen in as possible. Believe me, that mask restricts a lot of that oxygen coming. So there are a lot of things you have to take into consideration when you go with the blinking.
And what's obvious tonight, a lot of things that the average person is
Will
not
not think
aware
about.
of.
No, that's right.
You go through on that stage on the Master night.
So many a night I would tell you I would have crossed stage and I would come off stage if you would ask me how was it, or if you came up to me and asked me what tune you were playing, I would not be able to answer you. Because you get into a whole different zone. You think of your costume, you think of breathing properly, you think of, okay, what is the costume going to do next? What is happening? And you are in a whole different world by yourself. You're completely in a completely different zone. And it's not one of the easiest things to do out there. As I said, it's a big stage. The stage is 40 feet wide, it's 100 feet long. And it is so easy for something to go wrong out there.
It's a contrast of golden colors.
It's a combination of gold, silvers, with some plumage on the wings, with a lot of peacock feathers. And of these peacock feathers, we were talking about the $20 plumes earlier. These ostrich feathers are $45 and up. You know, but at least what you could do with these is after Carnival, at least you could salvage them off the costume and use them for another year. Which a lot of the people do now because
that
of the cost
happens,
of
they actually
materials.
keep the feathers on the plumes or whatever for next year.
You keep them, you store them away very quick. In a lot of, Stephen Derrick I know, takes a lot of these feathers and refrigerates them to store them to keep them good for the following year. I mean, when you pay $45 for a feather for one night, believe me, you're going to try to keep them as much as possible. And again, this is exactly what I was saying. It's a huge costume, but there's no movement. There's no light. It's supposed to be a scorpion.
I see your point.
This is supposed to be a scorpion. I mean, normally I know when I see a scorpion, it's because it's running or it's poised to bite you, and all that's part of the motion. It's depicting a scorpion. Here we have Roderick Snell, our second king. Roderick lives in New York, in Brooklyn to be exact. And it's good to see him back. Roderick has won once before, as I said, and he had stopped playing king for quite a while, and basically it was because I remember one year Roderick came in and they charged him $14,000 in duty for the material he bought in. That year the prize money was $12,000. And he got very disenchanted, he took a rest, but it's good to see him back. It's good to see him back. And he has his costume, it's called Batman 2001 and Beyond. A high-tech version.
A high-tech version?
Yes, again, it's a category fantasy. Again, as we talked about earlier, artistic license, which is a lot easier to design for a designer than when you keep the original topical, when you have to keep, I mean, a rose is a rose, a bird is a bird. So it's so hard to design this bird as something you have not seen before. And you hear a lot of quiet on stage now. It's all part of Roderick's presentation. The lights have gone down. He's asked for special lighting and sound.
Okay, let's take a break and we'll come back with Roderick Snell, Fantasy.
Viva sparkling flavored water. Viva is sparkling flavored water with natural fruit flavors and just 30 calories. Viva! Satisfy your thirst for life.
Well, we are back, and Roderick Snell is about to work his way on stage. Peter, let's hear about
Yes, so here we are seeing all the theatrics we were talking about earlier on. This is Batman 2001 and beyond, a high-tech version. We've missed some of his early presentation where he had the special music and all the special lighting effects, and it's exactly what we were just talking about. He had a slight hitch backstage coming up the ramp. It is so simple just to get a wheel hooked on the bottom of the stage. I mean, everybody criticized the paving of the Savannah, but for the kings and queens, I know they were quite happy about it, because at least they had a smooth part up onto the stage and didn't have the rough grass outside to deal with.
And this is quite dramatic.
But this is all part of his dramatic presentation. He has added Robin with him this year. You see Robin, I mean, tonight he didn't have Robin on the preliminaries or the semi-finals. And here we see the traditional of Batman hiding his face, so you can't tell his identity. Basically, what the concept, the description is, Batman front and top. There's capes from jackets. Capes from Batman, Two-Face, Robin, Riddler, Joker, Penguin, and Catwoman. These are all characters from the Batman movies and novels, and you would see them all in different parts of the costume.
Oh, so in other words, they incorporate all the various personalities from the Batman episode
into the one costume. This costume is 18 feet tall, 25 feet wide. The basic colors are neon green, yellow, blue, black, and the materials used are fiberglass, silk, aluminum, and plastic. The special effects he had early on was the laser lights in the fog. We now see the lights coming up, and there we see the different figures of the Riddler and the Joker. He turned to the front, and he has bigger figures in front. But again, he's still with all the dramatic music and all part of his presentation. He hasn't gone into his calypso as yet. And the judges will take all this into consideration of what he's trying to say, the story he's trying to depict. Because the judges would have been given a much more concise concept or description than we have been given. So basically he's trying to portray whatever synopsis he has given to the judges. He's now trying to act out all of this as part of his presentation, hopefully which will add to his points. And Roderick moved up from the preliminaries to the semi-finals. But in the semi-finals, according to the points, we check my point sheet, he came 5th in the preliminaries with 369 points. And that was a big jump up for him, because in the preliminaries he came 12th. In the preliminaries, Titus Eustace, which is the reigning king, won with 435 points, and Geraldo Vera came second with 432 points. And I hate to try and predict earlier, but I think that's where the fight is going to be. The little costume that I like, which is the Brian McFarlane costume with the competitor Farid Cavallo, only got 389 points, and he tied for 3rd. And
still unfolding in
yes,
drama.
He's still unfolding the whole Batman.
The calypso is yet to come. You know, is it possible we could see his entire presentation without hearing a calypso?
Yes, you could. There's no rules. There is no rules in the rule book saying that you have to perform to calypso. The year I performed with Man Crab, we used Tassa for the entire presentation. We were criticized for it, we were booed for it, but it was part of the production. It was part of the theatrics that we were trying to say, the message we were trying to cross, and it worked. The judges realized that it works and we won. So maybe we might not even hear calypso tonight. Because I said there are no rules saying that you have to perform the calypso. And you're getting a mixed reaction from the crowd. You get some people actually clapping, some jeering, you know. But again, it's different. It's something that something new, something creative that he's trying. I mean, it's the first time I've seen a king to this length continue with this kind of presentation. By now, most of them have gone into the calypso and playing their mass. But Roderick has taken it to a whole new level tonight. It'll be interesting to see how the judges score this costume for its presentation.
Getting a mixed reaction.
Yes, it is. We are getting a mixed reaction, which is interesting. I mean, this is something that I am quite accustomed to, because we all, because of Peter Mitchell's controversy, we always got mixed reactions. And as a masquerader, you know what you are trying to do. And some of this makes you want to go even more and try even harder. And as you said, Eric, he's going off and out here in a calypso. Very interested.
It's time for contestant number 3.
Yes, here we have Roland Vialva. It's category Ancient History. And again, this is one of Stephen Derrick costumes, Dynasty in the Desert. The name of the costume is Amon-Ra, King of the Gods, Sun God. And we are hearing again, using the special effects with the music, we are hearing all the horses in the background. I can remember this costume from the semi-finals. It's 2 horses in a chariot, so you're actually hearing the costume before you see it on stage. Which again, it's very good to watch it. And here we see it. So you're actually hearing the horses coming on stage.
But they're suspended.
Yes, again, the concept we have here is Sun God, bird of the horse chariot, wings on clouds. So basically, it's chariots flying through the clouds, being by these 2 horses. The dimensions of this costume is 20 by 24 by 25. The materials used, wire, aluminum, steel, fiberglass, and a lot of sound effects.
What about the color combinations?
The list they gave us, we have no color combinations, and it's hard to say right now with the blue lights on stage. We wait till the normal lights come up and then we'll be able to tell. But from what I could see, it's lots of gold, silver, whites, and it's hard to pick up any other color with the blue lights on. But again, this year I find in particular, a lot of the designers are concentrated on a lot of sound effects this year now, besides the lighting effects, which is quite good. It adds to the show. Instead of hearing the same calypsos over and over and over, as Roderick Snell showed us, he was portraying Batman, and he portrayed it to Batman music, which nothing is wrong with that.
In this case now...
In this case, we go out to the horses and we are going into the traditional calypso. This is quite a big costume. As I said earlier, it's 20 feet by 24 by 25. A costume like this could easily take you up to the 400 or 500 pound range. But yet we are getting movement in the horses. We are getting to get those horses to move side to side. And quite effortlessly too, as we can see him there with his hands free. He has, what I would say, full control of the costume. I mean, it's very hard to maneuver these costumes from one side of the stage to the next. So a lot of times you see them going backwards before they turn right or turn left, is because just to be able to maneuver the costume from the middle of the stage to the side without falling off. Because it's very hard when you have a costume 25 feet wide to see the side of the costume. You want to try and get as close to the north stand and the grandstand as possible to get the crowd into it, because that's something we haven't touched on. It's so important for crowd response and crowd reaction. I mean, people say, don't think that only works for calypsonians or musicians. It also works for the masquerader.
Okay, so it sort of motivates the masquerader.
Of course, you go out there, you do something, you either wave your costume, or you dip with it, or you shift it from the left side to the right side, and the crowd reacts.
Well, personally, I love to see when they shake the costumes up.
Of course,
the music and go
sometimes you hear the crowd reacting to this, and this gives you a lot of incentive to shake it even more, try even harder. And this is something I always try to do, is I always try to play for the audience.
But to walk around with 400 pounds, Peter, it's kind of tough.
It's not easy. It is not easy, and that is why they are using the wheels. And that's why I'm saying that if we make it a rule that you can only use 2 wheels, you're going to find that the size of the costumes are going to decrease. You now have to start to become more creative to make a smaller but yet effective costume. And there's no reason why we can't do it. We did it in the past. I mean, a lot of the kings and queens that have won in the past have been small costumes. But because of the size of the costumes they're going to, they have to be carried on 4 wheels.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of gold in this costume.
A lot of gold, a lot of white, little trims of silver. We have some shades of blue in between. But the predominant colors are gold and white, which are quite effective. We see the blue comes in with the clouds because there's wings on clouds. That's the name, part of the name of the depiction. And the back of it is supposed to be representing a bird's tail. The basic colors are, and if you look carefully, there are traces of red. And it's a combination of gold and bronze. That's why we're getting these different shades in between. There's a reflecting off of the white. So you get all these different shades coming in between. There's a lot of bronze and golds used in between it. But it's so important to try and get the crowd into it, to give you that spirit of carnival, to give you that incentive to go along. A lot of the times you need that incentive to help you get from the center of the stage to come off.
It's time for the fourth contestant. You're making way for the fourth contestant?
Yes, and this is Shigakaka Mirage. His portrayal is First Contact, category Fantasy. It's from the band Now and Beyond. And the relation to the theme of the band is the future of man. The front of the costume is supposed to depict the face of an alien, and the back is the brain of an alien. This costume is 34 feet in diameter. I think this costume was designed by Keith McLean, and I think this is from the band Fantasia also. The basic color in this band is silver. And we see a lot of webbing and net with some colored streamers. The materials used is mesh, wire, and fiberglass.
Yes, that's the back. The brain of the alien there.
Yes, as I said, the front is the face of the alien, the back is the brain of the alien. And the whole face was done with fiberglass molding. And these are categories that they've brought into the mass recently. Now you find that you're behind the costume, not as the designers, but the wire benders and the molders. There are categories now for fiberglass molding and wire bending, where these people actually win their prizes now for the best fiberglass molding, best wire molding, papier-mâché, carving, which is good, because without these people they would not have a costume. So it's good to see that they're recognizing the mask builders now and giving them prizes. Now, Eric, this is a perfect example of what I was talking about. Here we see this masquerader actually lifting both feet off the stage. He's not jumping up, don't get me wrong, he's not jumping up. He's on a frame. We can actually hold on to the frame of the costume and raise his feet off the costume. Exactly what I was saying earlier. Is this a costume? Is it a float? You know? This is an argument that will go on for years to come. But to me, as I've said earlier, I've always been told about playing your mask. I've never been told about dragging your mask. And this is a perfect example of what I was talking about. Where this masquerader stands up in a frame, rocks it, shakes it, and actually holds on to it and swings on it. Here we see Geraldo Vera Jr. and I was talking to him before we came on stage, and he asked me please to say the name of the costume was Winds, an Element of Life. I don't know how, I mean, but he said for some reason he gave them, they said everybody's going to win the element of life. Apparently it's win the element of life. And he wrote a little quick synopsis backstage for me. Geraldo Vera Jr. has won the Carnival King on 2 other occasions. And he was tied in the preliminaries for first place with Curtis Eustace and came second only by 3 points. And we are going to see a lot of special effects from this costume tonight. I was talking to his father, who is the designer, Geraldo Vera Sr. And a lot has been added onto this costume for tonight. It's like a whole new costume. Here we see the strobe lights in front of it. Basically the heads and wings are like Old Man Winter, but in a tropical form. They are wind masters. They are positioned north, south, east, and west. The fire represents heat or tropical hot wind. Without air, fire cannot exist. The framework represents earth. So if we look at the frame, we will see he has shades of brown and molded and carved rocks out of fiber, plastic and fiberglass, which has been used and scattered by the wind. If we look at the main structure, we see a lot of bones. The white bones show where life was. They depict the destructive capabilities of wind. They are fish bones showing that the wind affects our waters, therefore all the elements. And that's why we get winds, the element of life. A lot of thought went into this costume. And basically the costume was designed by young Geraldo Vera Jr. It was built by his father, but a lot of thought went into this costume in terms of design. That the wind affects our waters, therefore all elements. And if we look at the costume from the side, you see this sort of wind shape. It's very hard for where we are sitting to see this, but every now and again when the costume turns, you see that sort of shape of the wind flowing through the costume. But a lot of thought went into the design and the depiction of the costume, and we are seeing all kind of effects going on out there, Eric. We're seeing the special lighting, we're seeing the strobe lights, we saw the fireworks earlier on. I think we're going to see some sort of confetti somewhere during this portrayal. This is what I was told backstage. But again, now people will say, oh, this is a float, but if you look carefully, Eric, it's only on 2 wheels. As big as it is, the costume is perfectly balanced. Geraldo gave me the opportunity backstage to put it on and walk around with it. And as big as the costume is, because of how perfectly balanced it is, a 12-year-old could carry it. The costume is perfectly balanced, and it's only on 2 wheels. Without the masquerader, the costume would fall. So again, it goes back to my point. Yes, that could pass for a costume.
That was a short time on stage, it seems like, for him.
Again, basically it looks short, but if you timed it, it was like about 3 minutes. Compared to some of the other costumes that stayed on a lot longer. You don't want to go out there and bore the judges. You want to go out there, have this big, strong impact, and leave. I mean, that's what Shadow did at Soca Monarch. No special effects. Came out there, sang his tune and left. And now we see our reigning king of carnival. Well, unofficial reigning king, we should say our defending king of carnival, Curtis Eustace. He tied with Geraldo Vera Jr. for first in preliminary.
Playing the Survivor.
The Survivor. He came second in the semi-finals by 3 points. The name of the costume is the Survivor, category Ancient History. The concept, after all the battle from the arena, the one who stands is the survivor, and he will fight again. This is from the band Barbarossa Arena. Here we see a lot of use of the special effects. We see all the special lighting. This is a big costume. It is 25 feet tall and it's 30 feet in circumference. And here we see all again the special effects being used, the special music to add to all of the portrayal. And now we see the bubbles being used. And this is the point I was making earlier. This is a costume very well done, beautifully designed. The workmanship is excellent if you see it backstage. The detail that went into this costume. I mean, the months and months of work, you could see it in the costume. But my argument here, is it original? It's a costume we have seen before, time and time again. By the same designers, people might argue, oh well, he's copying himself. Fine, but it shouldn't be scored as high as it has been scored for being original. And as a part masquerader, I would say no. I mean, because here I am trying to come up with something new and fresh this year, and you come back with basically the same design from 3 years ago. Different color, the front is now in the back, or the back is now in the front, and you're still getting the same points you got 3 years ago as an original design. So again, I think we have to look. I'm not blaming the designers, I'm not blaming the masqueraders. It goes back to the judging. We need to sit down and sort of go over the whole criteria of how are we going to judge these costumes. Because, as I said, and I'm going to repeat it, these costumes are getting bigger and bigger. And they are no longer costumes. This is on 4 wheels. As far as I'm concerned, it's a float. Years ago, there was a rule in the rule book that you could not use more than 3 wheels. They have removed that rule. Why? I don't know. But I think it's something that we have to look to and try to get these costumes back to a size where it is manageable and a size where somebody is carrying the costume, where it becomes a costume. I mean, there's no reason why you can't design a costume as beautiful as this. Do the same work that you have put into this. Same sort of concept, but make it smaller. Make it manageable. But we're getting a great crowd response. It is a beautiful costume. As I said, it's well designed. The colors are the same colors of the Queen. The greens, the blacks, the purples. And it is one of the costumes that you're going to have to contend with tonight if you want to win.
Let's see how he scored in the prelims.
In the prelims, he came. In the prelims, he tied with Gerald Oliveira. In the semifinals, he came first with 435 points, which was just 3 points ahead of Gerald Oliveira Jr. So it'll be interesting to see tonight if he could turn the tables and or how close the points will be.
Another popular name in the mass business. Another popular name in the mass business.
Oh yes, this costume has been designed by Brian McFarlane, who's one of our top designers, not just in Carnival, but at Christmas time doing our balls and there's a lot of weddings and things like that. And Brian is one of those young designers who was very creative, who holds the same views that I do. A costume is a costume that should be worn. And in all the years, Brian has been designing costumes. The most you would see is 2 wheels on his costumes. The costume tonight is a very small costume in terms of kings. But if you know Freddie Cavallo, who is the masquerader, Freddie Cavallo is the nephew of one of our band leaders, Glenn Cavallo. He used to bring out bands for years. He is, again, it's fixed. The head of an elephant. I think Brian gave us a little synopsis, which I'll try and read. In the still of the dawn, a pure and innocent child, depicted as the Borikit enters, sprinkling an offering of petals for the hope of a new day of peace in the land of Mother India. The 6 guards of purity then unfold the white shroud to behold the sacred and ceremonial elephant. With all of its power and glory, the mystical elephant enters the symbol of Mother India. The glorious sun begins to rise over the land and rivers. The graceful elephant dances in the rays of the roll of the tassel drum. Yes, it is the beginning of another glorious day in the land of mystery and legend. Old and new, drawing peace seekers to her shores, giving strength and life, creating a new dawn. And everything I just read, which was given to me by Brian, we see depicted in this costume. Again, it's not a very big costume, but as you can see, the masquerader is carrying the entire costume. And because of this, every step he takes, you see the costume react. So the slightest movement you make, you see the ears moving, you see the umbrella bouncing and shaking. The sun depicted at the back of the elephant, you see that life and bounce on the sun. And that's what I'm saying. We can design a costume like this, or even bigger, for a bigger masquerader, and he'll carry it. Fareed is a tiny, tiny man. He's like about 5'4", and Fareed weighs maybe 145 pounds when wet. You know? So even this is a challenge for him. But for me, it's new, it's fresh, it's something different. He came third. He actually moved up from fourth position in the preliminaries up to third, and you tied for third.
And it's time for the final contestant in the King department.
The final contestant is Len Frederick. His portrayal is the copulation wheel, category fantasy. The concept is the mating of the emperor dragonfly in the forming of a copulation wheel to pregnate the female dragonfly. Name of the band, Extract of Nature's Beauty.
And again, the use of the sound effects.
Yes, it's all part of it's all part of nature's beauty, where we hear the birds, and now we hear the thunderstorms. The relation of the team to the band is part of the beauty that surrounds us. Nature takes its course in the sexual and reproductive cycle. The description in the front of this costume is a dragonfly, popular whistle in flight and motion over a stream. At the back, amongst reeds and plants, the dragonfly completes the copulation wheel. Now, this is what I was talking about with special effects, Eric. This is supposed to be a dragonfly, nature's beauty. We talk about the copulation of the dragon wheel and the dragonfly. And here we see all these special lighting effects on the costume. You know, I mean, and again, it's creative license, it's artistic license, but does it really add to your portrayal? You know, you want the judges to see you depicting what is in front of them and how does this special lights come into Mother Nature. You know, but it is entered in the category fantasy, so
you have the creative freedom.
You have that freedom. The dimension of this costume is 20 feet wide, the height is 18 feet, the depth is 15 feet. The basic colors are silver, gold, black, green, blue. Materials used, wire, plastic, holographic paper, braid, satin, and lamy. But I mean, barring all what I had to say, I admire every masquerader who has crossed this stage. It's all a dedication. It's all definitely for the love of it. There is little or no monetary return for half of the masqueraders you see out there. For the few costumes that have been given the opportunity to actually win, they might recover part of the money they put out there. And these masqueraders come back year after year after year to entertain us and entertain the crowd, and I fully admire them for this.
Not to mention the foreigners.
Of course, you know, of course. But there's a lot that goes into these costumes that the average person in the street doesn't know about. And most of these costumes you see here, after Carnival Tuesday, they'll be scrapped, some will just be dumped. And it's a pity that we don't have a place to display these costumes, so we could have a sort of museum for them, at least from one year to the next. And that takes us back to what we were talking about earlier. Is the Savannah the proper place for this? The location where the Savannah is great. But the facility, as Relator said earlier, we need a place for the arts. We need a place for the calypsos. We need a place for the steel band. We need a place for the masquerader. We need an arts center.
Okay, so there we go. We went through the first look of the queens as they went across the stage and the kings. So we take that commercial break and we come back, enjoy the music, and as we go across for the second look for the judging.
The Caribbean sun is out shining. Open your window, explore the feeling. Sunshine, sun mix, so appealing.
Sunshine Snacks Sun Mix, a delicious blend of your favorite exotic fruits and nuts. Sunshine Snacks Sun Mix.
Okay, as we go through the second phase of the kings and queens crossing the stages, Peter, you could identify who they are.
Yeah,
and let's enjoy
basically
them.
at this stage, all that's happening here now, the judges are just cleaning up their marks, taking a quick second look to anything they might have missed on the first point. The costumes are basically judged already. Here we have Rosemary Jagasa, our first contestant. Okay. Oh, Eric, no, we have the junior queen of carnival on stage. The queens haven't started back. This is Cherise Akyung, and she has been crowned the junior queen of carnival. And I think she was from if I can remember, she was from Rosalind Gabriel's band.
This is cute.
Yes, Mystic Magic in a Repo. Now, we have to remember this is a child. This is a fairly big costume, and she is carrying it, Eric. It goes back to my point. You don't have to be big to be beautiful. Cute little costume, carried by the masquerader. She's enjoying herself. And the costume automatically comes to life. And here we see Sean Derrick. This is Stephen Derrick's son. And he won King last year also, Junior King of Carnival last year. So he has defended and won his crown. His name, the Lion King. Great use of the peacock feathers again. A lot of movement in the costume. And basically because he's carrying the costume. And these are all teenagers. I'm talking about early teens too. And they're not small costumes. And it's really great to see that the NCC has given the Junior King and Queen an opportunity to come and show their stuff off tonight. Okay, Eric, I think here comes the first queen. This is Rosemary Karu Jagasa. Name of her portrayal, Tundra, Goddess of the Sky. And as I was saying earlier, basically what the judges are now doing is just tidying up the marks, taking any last look of something they might have missed on the first appearance. But basically they already have their score sheets down. And they will just do what they're cleaning up they want to do at this stage. So it is still very important that you come out there and play your mask and portray your costume the way you want to. Second one, Marlene Moraldo. Name of the costume, not Goddess of the Sky. What's very interesting about this segment of the show, though, Eric, is that it becomes very competitive. Where the first round one costume is on stage at a time. At this stage, you actually sometimes see 2 or even 3 costumes on stage, and you find that the masqueraders go up a little more effort to show up the other costume. So the spirit of carnival is even higher in the second round than its first, because the judges and the audience now have 2 costumes to compare to each other.
Now make comparisons.
Yes, yes. And it's a little rivalry that goes on backstage. Just like the first costume, with a lot of blues and silvers and whites. Well, we still have Marlene Moraldo on screen, but Shastri Rock, contestant number 3, Peace Flowing Peace, is on stage also. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. We might not be seeing it, but she's out there. We have to believe she is performing to try and show up Marlene. It has been known in the past where 2 costumes have actually gotten close enough where they've actually broken off a piece of another costume. All in good rivalry, all in good rivalry. At 1 minute, it looked like poor Marlene was stuck there for a while.
That's what I thought for a while myself.
Yes, it looked like one of her wheels was giving her trouble. She's okay, she's got it going again. And these are all little things that you have that just pop up very suddenly that you just have to learn to deal with while you're out there. Number 4 is now on stage, and we're still looking at Marlene, trying to get those wheels going. Contestant number 4, Michelle George, Papora, Splendor of Beauty. Now what we're looking at now is Shamshi Rock, Peace Flowing Peace. This is contestant number 3. And there we can see the effort from the masquerade to try and get this costume moving. But what is happening now, Eric, they are going back across stage against the wind.
Okay,
That is why
you
you
see the extra effort.
see the extra effort now, because coming across you have the wind at the back. So it's that much easier. What you have to do now, you're actually going against the wind up there. So you're actually seeing that extra effort in her to get this costume going.
She can't even dance it. She has to pull it.
That's exactly what I was saying, you know. And I mean, I admire them, but let's get back to reality and scale these costumes down and give the masquerader costume to play mass, enjoying themselves. Believe me, she's smiling, but she is not enjoying this out there. Well, we're still seeing contestant number 3. Contestant number 5 is entering stage, Alana Ward. It's all in the game. And once you have a costume 28 feet wide and more, you're going against a Savannah Breeze. It's not easy. And you have to remember now you're also a little bit more tired than the first time across because you've already done this one. Not much rest, and you're now coming back to do it a second time. And we see the effort there. Not easy, Eric. We're still looking at Shamshi Rock, contestant number 3. Okay, here we go. We are looking now at Alana Ward. It's all in the game. This is contestant number 5. I think we missed Michelle George, contestant number 4.
I'm a stranger.
And that's Alana.
I came down here for the carnival. So music, I'm in a trance. Want to play my, teach me how to dance. I had a rock and do it, do it. Find yourself a band and find a good position. When the music
There's Michelle George
find out how to play man.
for Pura Splendor of Beauty.
Whether they rock, whether they rock, whether they block, whether they block, whether they block. Wave it, wave it, wave it, wave it. Do your thing, do your thing, do your thing.
Oh, no, that's Andrea Bob. Midnight at the Oasis, contestant number 6.
Whether they whine, whether they whine, whether they whine, roll it.
Much smaller costume, but just as effective because of the use of feathers. And I said, Anne Roy is our reigning queen up until tonight.
Jump up, wind up, wind up. Jump up, wind up, yeah, yeah.
What we're seeing now is Gloria Dalsing, Sky Glazer.
To get in the groove, music fever, had a running move, buy a little rod, put it in your pocket, buy a little flat, that's the way to do it. Find yourself a band, find a good position, when the music's loud, you'll find out how to play, man. When does it rock, 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 wave it, wave it, wave it, wave it, do your thing, do your thing, darling, do your thing, do your thing, when does it wind you out, when
This is Leslie Ann Boiselle, Sunset on Glacier Mountain. Big smiles from Leslie Ann enjoying herself, playing to her fans in the audience. And now we have contestant number 9, Joanne Pascal, the Pollen Game.
I said, welcome to sweet Trinidad, to have you here. I am very glad. Let me wish you happy holiday. I do hope that you enjoy your stay. Find a little rock and put it in your pocket. Buy a little flat. That's the way they do it. Find yourself a
And this is Pamela Gordon, contestant number 11. Metamorphosis 2001. This is our final contestant in the queen category. We had 11 queens tonight, as we said earlier, because there were four-way tie in the semi-final. This was Susan Lowe, contestant number 10. Vision of Tomorrow. And there we see the completion of the queens making their 2 wrongs for the judges. Time for the big guys, as you would say, Peter. Time for the big guys, as you would say. Yes, we're about to start with the king. King number 1, Talofa, Steve Simmons, the Scorpion King of the Desert. What is going through there, everybody's mind now is to get out there and get those judges that last look of the costume to make any little correction in the points and give them something to remember your costume about and hopefully get you up there in the winner's circle.
You don't see these costumes on the road too often, do you?
Again, no, because of the size. I mean, we don't have too many streets that could take 30-foot wide costumes and 25-foot high costumes because of the overhead lines. And that's exactly one of my points, is that we don't need to go so big. You will get more costumes, you'll get more effects of the costume on stage, and John public can now see them close up on the road. But a lot of these costumes cannot go on the main road, so what you find that they do, that they drive them up to the savannah, assemble them, and they cross stage with it because you are judged in the savannah in your category for costume of the day. There used to be individual of the year, which everybody was allowed to enter, but now the kings and queens have their own costume, like king of the day, queen of the day, and the rest of the individuals are judged in the categories, which are judged Carnival Monday on the road. But I won't say on the road, but in the savannah. So they get to the savannah, you find out them drive them up to the savannah, and then they cross stage. Which is a shame because you have foreigners, you have locals all over parts of Trinidad who would love to see these costumes coming through the streets. And they're not given the opportunity. Not everybody can come to the March Well. The stands can hold so much. People want to go to different parties and do other things tonight. And it's a pity that they won't be given the opportunity to see these costumes on the streets. And maneuvering a costume this size in the streets could be very difficult.
He is now dancing to Calypso.
Yes, now Batman has now gone Batman soca. So there's Roderick enjoying himself. But I admire him for sticking to what he believed in and doing his entire first performance to the Batman music. He's now showing the judges that I can move my costume. Yes, I can play Mars in my costume. Getting back to your question, Eric, taking a costume like this through the streets is not easy. Now, I know Steven Derrick, he's one of the few band leaders that does this. And sometimes Stevie has as many as 40 characters in his band. And, I mean, Stevie's entire band takes up as much space as the Poisons and the Barbarosas, and Stevie only has 600 members in his band. But the size of the costume, it's really a sight. Steven Derrick has been the most winning band leader in the medium band category. I think, if my facts are correct, if I remember off the top of my head, he has won Band of the Year in the medium band category for the last 10 years. And as a masquerader, it's a shame that you're not really allowed to portray your mask in the streets. I know I love to do it, because you're a lot closer to the crowd than in the savannah, and you get that reaction from the public out there, and you know that you're pleasing people, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, when Alison Brown and myself played Tantan and Tiger Boy, it was a joy to be able to actually go up onto a pavement and dance with a spectator. You know, and a lot of these masqueraders are not given this opportunity because the difficulty of getting their costumes through the streets, because they've gotten so big. Here we see Gerald Rivera Jr., contestant number 5, Winds and Light. here we see Curtis Eustace, contestant number 6, the survivor. You can see the effort Curtis has to put in getting his costume back across. Now he's going against the wind. And Curtis is a very big man. He's about 6'2", and almost just as wide. He's not a small man. So there's a lot of effort going in getting his costume back across stage. Here we see Farid Carvalho. Contestant number 7. Next to Curtis Eustace, looks like a little dwarf, but yet quite effective. Final contestant, Len Frederick, Population Wheel. So now is to go backstage and sit down and wait patiently through the second rounds like a Calypso's for your results. And believe me, that 2-hour wait is one of the hardest waits in your life.
Now that we have seen all the queens and all the kings, give me your little analysis here now of your feelings of the mass in general.
Overall, I find the standard of kings and queens this year was a lot higher than it was last year. I've spoken to a lot of designers backstage, and they all have basically the same general concerns about the price of materials, where they have gone and the duties on materials. But as I said, it's a love. It's definitely a love for it. And I'm really hoping that in time to come we will get the powers that be to give us duty-free materials, where we can keep the cost of these costumes down, where the designer can be a lot more creative.
Okay, Peter, let me say thanks again for your time and your analysis here this evening. It's been wonderful working